DDG episode 70. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? We're a little late today going live on Twitch, but we were just talking amongst ourselves for a little bit. Uh, I'm kind of coming off a couple days off in a row, which is nice because I just came off like a vacation. The weather's kind of nice too. By nice, I mean it's 40 degrees. So yeah, it's been pretty good.
Yeah,
How are you doing, Dave?
I'm all right. A little under the weather, so if I cough today or if I sound a little raspy, I apologize. My wife decided to have the window open last night for a little bit.
So it's 40 degrees.
And it's also been, we actually, like over the weekend, we got up to like the upper 50s, and then it goes down
we hit
to like
60.
Yeah, below 30. So it's kind of just messing with my sinuses in general. I had just a rip roaring headache all day yesterday for whatever reason. No matter how much pain reliever I took, it just wouldn't go away. So that was definitely a pressure headache, or whatever you want to call those weather headaches. But we are Digital Days Gaming. Like Michael said, we're live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming, where if you give us a follow, that's appreciative. I can't say that's awesome. And then you could also subscribe to us through Amazon Prime if you have that, or you could just do a direct subscription. I know Twitch sometimes offers services or discounts for the first time subscribers, so definitely check that out. Just click the subscription button on your stream, and that's always helpful. And then you can also just follow us on all the social feeds that are in the show notes, and we would appreciate that. As always, sharing the show and leaving reviews helps. So tell a friend to tell a friend, and if you could leave 5 stars and some words, that'd be great. And then just following us on most of the social stuff. I know not everybody uses everything, but even if you don't think that it would be something you would use, just follow it and then kind of close it out and don't use it. Based on looking at numbers of downloads and these and those, it would be nice to see some more leveled numbers consistently, but that's just how I function. Not everybody wants to follow us on all things, and that's totally fine, but it helps give us better opportunities. So yeah, please.
Yeah, I've talked to PR people and they're like, "Yeah, you tell us the numbers are here, but we look here and it's like, how?" And it's just like, "Believe me."
Yeah. Thankfully, we actually have physical raw data to show them that, these
Yeah,
are
it's
real.
nice.
But it does help like our social footprint. If you like our Facebook page and you follow us on Twitter and you subscribe on YouTube, those are all things of not even that we're expecting those numbers to be high, but the drastic differences of those numbers can lead to some confusion. Why do you have so many here but not so many here? And then you tell us that this many people listen to the show, and it's like, yeah.
I don't know. People don't want to be on Twitter.
So,
Facebook's name has been through the mud a lot, so some people
so,
don't want to be on Facebook. But if you combine everything, maybe.
yeah. But anyways, we're going to jump into the news. We're going to talk a little bit about a game that I've talked about a lot, and we're going to talk about a game that Michael just hopes is good at this point.
Yeah. All right. So a couple weeks ago, we put on the show in the news that EA was going to review whether Anthem was going to see its next phase, Anthem Next, or if they were going to kill it. Last week it came out, they are just going to kill it. So it was reported that they had about 30 people working on Anthem Next over the last, what would you say, like a year to 2 years? Like year and a half?
Yeah, it's like 2 years next month when the game came out. So I'd probably say at least 12 to 18 months that they've been doing some type of, we've been hearing rumblings of major fixes, but they haven't released any significant patches that I can recall during that time at all either.
Yeah, I think they're just doing basic holiday live service stuff. But they had a team of 30 people working on Anthem Next. They were going to fundamentally redesign the game and release it in some form. That's not going to happen. So EA looked at it and just decided it just wasn't worth the effort to try and rebuild this brand. And they are now going to just focus on Dragon Age, Mass Effect, and something I forgot, Republic, the MMO. They're going to just focus on those 3 franchises. Dragon Age obviously has a new game announced. Mass Effect has the Legendary Edition and a future game coming out in that franchise. And then for Star Wars: The Old Republic, they're just going to continue to do quality of life updates, maintaining that player base. Separately, but also related, Bloomberg reported that the multiplayer aspect of Dragon Age 4 is officially canceled. They're now going to just focus on making Dragon Age a single-player campaign playing into BioWare's strength. which thank God. Like I was kind of bummed out when I heard that Anthem was gonna be canceled. Not because I cared about Anthem, but because I feel bad that 30 people have been working for like almost 2 years, and are gonna have all their work thrown out. But mostly I was happy because Dragon Age is a single player game and it should be a single player game. So it looks like EA is just gonna let BioWare be BioWare, and they're not gonna force a multiplayer experience down their throat. And the scary thing is, apparently, it was still a heavily focused multiplayer experience for the new Dragon Age, which is just crazy to me.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, how do you feel about the potential rumored, air quoted thing of like this is almost the third kind of reboot for this game? So, like, if you believe like what you're seeing or reading or hearing over the last couple of years of like they were making a Dragon Age game. So like then and per normal Dragon Age, they were continuing the Dragon Age universe. That was the first thing we heard about it when we started hearing about Dragon Age 4, correct?
Yes.
And then it's led to believe that EA started doing what they like to do and started mingling and mumbling with stuff and wanted to, dip their toes into the games as a service. They wanted FIFA 2.0, but in the Dragon Age world. So they started weaving some of the games as service into there a little bit.
Yeah, I know as far back as 2016, because I know someone that went into a focus group for Dragon Age where they were pitching like, oh, do you want to play Dragon Age as a multiplayer game? And it kept referencing Destiny 1 at that point in 2016, I believe. Because when did Destiny 2 come out?
Like 2017. Yeah, it's like year 3. We're in
2017.
Year, yeah.
So they kept referencing during that focus group Destiny 1 on how if people would like to see it. And from what the person told me in that focus group, no one in that focus group wanted that, but it sounds like EA was going forward with that. But then a year or two later, they brought back some Dragon Age developers, and it sounds like all that was thrown out. And that made people hopeful that maybe they were going to move away from multiplayer. But turns out they were still working on a multiplayer component.
Right.
Up until maybe sometime last year when EA probably looked at like the Anthem stuff. But that is a ton of work that had to be thrown out. And if it was going to be heavily focused multiplayer, I doubt it's very easy for them to just like rework things and then turn that content into a single player campaign.
Right.
Which I guess makes sense why the last couple times we've seen Dragon Age, it's been here's a screenshot. Here's
they don't really
camera
have anything
around.
working yet because they didn't want to show it. They didn't want to show 6 characters on the screen doing something because they figured they weren't ready to show that.
All we've seen is screenshots and like a camera panning through a very empty and lifeless, scene. So this makes me happy, but also like it's still going to be like 2 years until we see the next Dragon Age
at the earliest.
Because those 30 people aren't going to be enough for them.
We're gonna talk about it in the next story. This is not taking another team and helping them. This is not Naughty Dog taking their 1.5 team and going, hey, we need to put all assets on Uncharted 4. Like, we need to take all of our talent and put it on Uncharted 4. This group that was working on Anthem Next, if I speculate, is probably 5% of the task force that was originally on Anthem.
Who were hyper focused on a very specific thing,
right.
Who now have to transition over to the other team and then just be like, hey, so what have you been doing the last 2 years? Making a multiplayer game that no one wants to play. Well, guess what? This isn't a multiplayer game anymore. It's a single player game.
Yeah, because these people, I'm sure, were focusing on how to bring the player base back, and then 2, when you bring them back, how to keep them there, and keep them there daily, weekly. This is not versus Dragon Age. It goes, we need to tell a compelling story that we want somebody to come in and want to be a part of the world, not just to dip in and dip out when they choose. Yeah.
So you would imagine they had, some like designers working on this and some people working on like games for service events and like, oh, what type of events can we do that would be interesting? And now those people have to transition their skills, which I'm sure a majority of them, since they were BioWare team members, will be able to do, but they're going to have to change their focus and their headspace, especially I would imagine the mental state, like coming out of this probably isn't going to be like super high, or it could be like being released from prison.
Yeah, thank God. I
It could
get
be
to actually
either
do
one.
what I want to do now instead of like trying to make this engram look better.
Yeah, do something that will actually see the light of day, as
Yeah.
opposed to them
Well, and
having to work the last year.
that's the scary part. Like we mentioned a couple weeks ago that I was talking about, like I equated it to Division when Division was doing their like 8.0 update or whatever they did. Like there was 7 other updates before that 8.0 update that really like pushed it over. Like they were building blocks or building steps to get to their next level. Anthem hasn't even put down any kind of framework to build one step, let alone 9.
Well, the foundation that they built, they were like, we got to tear this up and do it again. That was the
Yeah.
whole point of Anthem Next. So they didn't even really have anything
And
to like
it's
build
got to be
upon.
and it's got to be money because like we said before too, like they're pitching it to they're pitching it to EA's board or whoever makes these decisions for the finances. And I'm sure if I'm the board member, I'm like, yeah, this concept sounds great. What's the price point you're thinking? Oh, sir, we can't charge for this. We screwed our player base already. Well, what do you mean you can't charge for it? Like what you're telling me it's going to take you another 13 months and you're gonna show me the possibility of 0 revenue generated unless it 100% works? Nope, sorry.
Well, yeah. It's just like, oh, this is going to give us goodwill. Where can I cash that check?
Right.
And it's just, you're not. Especially this sort of thing, because they're already working on so many other properties. You're talking about the studio having to probably hire people, not transition people from other teams. You're talking about them being like, okay, so I guess we're going to create another studio within the BioWare umbrella to do this.
But then they would have to prove that it works and then try to monetize it in a the only thing I could think it would have been any kind of savior mode would have been some form of a seasonal model of $10 for 90 days battle pass like system, and that would have been 2 years out. It would have been, hey, here's our stuff. Here's what we're trying to do to make it relevant. Here's some, pinnacle content for you to do to gear up. Okay, cool. Like, oh, I'm having a lot of fun in Anthem again. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's a new update and it costs $10 and here's what you get for the $10 and the cosmetics and here's the activity, just to hope that you can grab that seasonal Fortnite, Apex, Destiny, Division, whatever, insert game here thing that you want.
It was too tall of a hill for them to climb, or mountain to climb. Especially like the answer probably would have been go free to play. But then whatever loyal base you had that put money down on this game, $60, because I guarantee the people that are still playing Anthem now are the people that spent $60 on it, as opposed to the people that spent $5 on it during the holiday sales. So like then telling them like, hey, yeah, you paid 60, but we're going free to play. So
how soon?
Here's some costumes.
All right, so it's March 2021. Okay. When will I not be able to sign into Anthem?
So they did say in this announcement they'll keep it up for the foreseeable future. I see them going through the rest of the year.
Okay.
And then
so in March of 2022, can I sign in?
No. I was gonna say like right around the next fiscal year ending is when they'll probably quietly be like, oh yeah, and then we cut this service, and this service. They'll bunch it in when they close like the Madden from 3 years ago announcement. Because they do that usually. Like you can't play the oldest sports game like 3 years out, so they'll probably just bunch it into that announcement, which is usually around like the financial fiscal year or the next Madden game. So it's either March or August of next year. I feel like Anthem will quietly just die out, and I don't think anyone would really notice at that point. Because
I think there was a lot of talk about it because there was hope, but I think in the back of people's minds they knew that it was like a 5% chance that they were going to see something with this. I mean, I feel bad, like you said, I feel bad for these 30 or people that were working on it, but at the same time, like at least now they know that it's done. There's no little ember kindling in the fire that could turn into like this raging fire. Like it's extinguished. It's done. Yeah,
they can move on and then find their spot in the Dragon Age Mass Effect team.
So are we? When's the next thing we see from BioWare though? Like that somebody can play.
That someone can play? I have no idea. I know we'll probably see Dragon Age at the next EA Play, and then we'll probably see an actual substantial gameplay at the Game Awards.
Yeah, but when am I seeing a BioWare logo on my console or my PC for a new game?
I feel like the earliest would be holiday next year.
Wow, that's a long time.
The earliest.
And what have they released since Anthem?
Mass Effect Andromeda.
Was that before Anthem or after Anthem?
Before Anthem, maybe like a year before Anthem
Okay,
or a year
so we're
after.
talking about the possibility of a, and this does happen, but like they've got Knights of the Republic, or like you mentioned before, but like BioWare will not have something on PC or console in a 5 or 6 year span. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
2017 is Mass Effect Andromeda.
So, and that was Anthem, I think, too. Or an Anthem was 2 years old now, so 2019.
Looking it up, looking it up. Yeah, 2019.
Okay,
Yeah.
so all right, so maybe not as far as I thought. So 2019, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, so 3 years. Okay, not as bad as I thought. Never mind. So
Yeah. But still, uh, this now just pushed the pressure on like if Dragon Age doesn't hit, what is the future of BioWare
hmm
at that point? Though I have a feeling we'll talk about it later, but I'm assuming a Mass Effect Legendary, whatever it's called, a Legendary Edition, that's going to sell like crazy. So that will probably be their lifeboat.
hmm But they're
All
not.
right.
That's EA's lifeboat, not BioWare's, right? Because BioWare's not doing this, or they're messing with it a little bit.
It sounds like they did get people from the BioWare team
Uh huh.
to work on this and just tweak what they wanted to tweak.
But like BioWare's name's not on this remaster, right?
No, it's on
Okay.
the thing.
Okay.
But the idea that I still don't believe that BioWare was the only studio that touched this.
Okay.
I would assume other EA studios
Like
touched,
a Blue Point
this.
style studio got their hands on this.
Yeah, they have like
Yeah.
we'll talk about one of those studios they have in the next story.
Yeah.
So more EA news. EA has officially delayed the new Need for Speed game from Criterion. They were going to release a Need for Speed game this year, no title to that or subtitle to that, but they decided to delay that in favor of putting Criterion on Battlefield 6, which is going to launch at the end of this year. So it sounds like it's all hands
November.
on.
Like Battlefield
Yeah.
6 is coming in November, like it always does.
Mhm. Yeah, it sounds like this is going to be all hands on deck. EA Dice LA, I think is the official name of the studio. They are also jumping on with Dice proper to work on Battlefield 6, and Criterion is doing this. They wanted to assure that this wasn't because something bad was happening with Need for Speed or something bad was happening with Battlefield. They just thought it would make more sense to do this, especially because EA closed the deal on Codemasters, and Codemasters already has a racing game set
Mm-hmm.
for
Well,
this holiday.
and they want Codemasters to help on Need for Speed.
Probably.
Like, they want some of their tech in there, or their driving in there, like the whatever. Because Codemasters makes some good driving games,
Yeah.
and that
And they sell
could
well.
help with Need for Speed. Maybe get it a little, like, I'm not saying it needs to go like on a scale of 1 to 10. It's probably an 8 or a 9 on the arcade scale. Like maybe it can get to like a 6.5 or a 7 and have a little bit more simulation to it, a little bit more not floaty feel.
Yeah, they can definitely. EA is going to use the Codemasters. There are multiple studios that make racing games, so they're going to use them to probably anchor the Need for Speed stuff for
And
the
then
foreseeable future.
What's going to sell better, Battlefield or Need for Speed? What's more important for it to be right at launch? Battlefield.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Especially like the Battlefield games. I always get in trouble when I say like games didn't hit that well, and it's not because I'm just not interested in them. But the last two Battlefield games didn't hit as well as they usually do.
No, 4 did very, very well, even though the launch was terrible. 5
Yeah.
was kind of like in terms of like some of the co-op stuff that they did with it. And then the other like off sites, the off names, like Battlefield, like whatever, like I can't, like the
Well,
crime.
remember, it's Battlefield 5. Was it Battlefield 5 then Battlefield 1?
Oh
or was
yeah,
it Battlefield
one.
1? That's what I'm saying. The
one
last
then 5,
two.
1 then 5. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
4 was the last one that did really well and was like damn near perfect in terms of like everything that it tried to accomplish and its popularity.
90 days after launch. Because
Yeah.
Battlefield 4 launch was a next gen launching title. It worked on
Yeah,
PS3s, 360s, and 4s and 1s. That sounded weird
Yeah.
to say.
it's confusing. We're almost past that time where we don't have to reference all that confusingness. But the last two just didn't do well. They did still sell because they're Battlefield games and it's a name that will sell. But critically, it didn't do well. And I don't think it had the tail that like I know people that still play Battlefield 4.
Yep. Yeah,
They
for sure.
still play Battlefield 4. They don't load up Battlefield 1. Battlefield 1 you always see on the PlayStation Store for like $5
Hmm.
and you can get a bundle with that in Titanfall. So
Yeah. So like
I'm
6 has to hit in terms of what they're. I'm sure that they're going to have some form of battle royale in 6. Whether you want to see it or don't want to see it, it's going to be there.
hopefully better
Um,
than the last Battle Royale they
yeah,
tried.
that they're going to have their conquest mode in there, and then the maps are going to be bigger. I believe that I don't quote me on this. Don't come at me if I'm wrong. I think that this is only coming to next gen.
I believe that might be the case. I'll
Okay,
look
so
back in the
which
story.
means they can probably broaden the scale of it more in terms of how many
Mhm.
players on the screen and or I mean on the server and their conquest modes and how to customize their servers and stuff. So they have to get this right. Like they have to get it right.
Yeah. It's one of those things. If they don't get this one right, that they'll probably have to go back to the drawing board, and next year we'll just get a remaster of something while they like refocus on what they want to do with Battlefield. So this is good news.
And then
Criterion has been
Dice LA is like that second studio that
and
respawns
Sampella went to go
yeah
join.
respawns guys running like one of his 2 studios that he's running.
Yeah. Vincent Pella is running Dice LA, but it sounds like they're just going to work on this. They apparently are working on a first-person shooter game, but no one knows what that is. But I'm guessing now this means that is delayed in favor of Battlefield 6. So the Dice LA game will probably just be the shooter for EA next year, as opposed to this year as they try and do stuff. Unless they want to Titanfall Dice LA and put it out a week before Battlefield and Call of Duty.
Shove
But
it in
yeah,
there.
just sandwich it in. It'll be fine. So I don't know. This is pretty good news. I forgot about the Codemasters acquisition until this was mentioned. We're like, yeah, we already have a racing game come out. We're not going to Titanfall Need for Speed or our new acquisition. We're not going to set up our new studios to fail because we're going to put a Need for Speed game out in the same month.
Hmm.
So it makes sense for them to do that, and it's going to be weird seeing all these Codemasters games come out with the EA name, because I'm guessing EA just releases all the racing games that Codemasters has been producing. I don't think you stop Codemasters from releasing like 3 games a year,
Right.
especially if they have like their little pockets that they're successful.
Just add them to EA Play.
And just add them to EA Play and just go for it. All right. Next story. Little sad story. At least I found it pretty
This
sad.
agitates me actually.
Yeah, this bothers me on a couple different levels. So Video Games Chronicles said that, or they reported that Sony Japan Studio are going to close and be absorbed by the Asobi team. So the Astro's Playroom, Astrobot, Astro Rescue Mission team. The reason they are reporting this is because a lot of the people in the studios contracts were expiring in April, and Sony has declined to extend those contracts. So anyone that's left over will just be absorbed by the Astro team. So for those unfamiliar with Sony Japan, they are kind of Sony's go-to, like I always call them auxiliary studios, but support studios, and studio that does cool experimental games, especially during the PS3 era. Would just put out like random stuff. But they are the creators of like Ape Escape, I believe Gravity Rush, Everybody's Golf, but they also helped with like Demon Souls and White Knight Chronicles, just a bunch of games. The Knack games are technically out of this studio.
Or is it Shadow of the Colossus and Last Guardian?
Yeah. Shadow of the Colossus, they helped Bluepoint with that.
But I think they made the original one, right?
Oh yeah, the original with Team
Yeah.
Ico.
Okay.
So like Team Ico.
Yeah.
So they're one of those studios. If you go to their wiki page, there's a ton of stuff because they helped so many of these studios bring their games to PlayStation. So
Last Guardian, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
that's
Last
theirs,
Guardian,
right?
Bloodborne. Technically, they helped From Software release that game. The latest Demon Souls with Bluepoint, they helped do that. But I also like them for all these small games that they released, especially like in the PS3 era. like Rain, Puppeteer. Um, what else did they do?
It's what like it's the library that started separating Sony from everybody else.
Yeah. So the reason the reason it is believed they're closing a studio is just their games just weren't making enough money. So that's why they're just going to move them into the Astro because they see a franchise with Astro, which I understand that logic, but at the same time, it's just like you're Sony. You're making a killing right now. All of your other studios.
You're expanding your other studios. Like we hear about them, like, oh, Naughty Dog's getting bigger. Sony Santa Monica's getting bigger. There's this other secret studio that they're making that's working on some new IP, like that they're, like while they're like opening up new stuff, and you were hearing like Ghost of Tsushima's printing money. Last of Us Part 2 is printing money. God of War's printing money. Guess what, Studio Japan? F you.
Yeah, basically, it's just like they do cool experimental games, and like the fact that Sony just didn't see like a future for the studio. I don't care. I don't believe their games have ever been too expensive that they've probably taken a bath in losses for any game they produced. But like that's the fun part of Sony. Like I've been very nostalgic the last couple months about PS3 like indie games, or not necessarily indie games because they're from this studio, but the smaller experimental games. Just the idea that they're just like, yeah, they're just not financially viable is just a real.
Let me ask you this though. So, from a gaming standpoint, I would. I mean, I don't. I guess there's a couple listeners that'll tell me if I'm wrong or not. But based on at least the people that are in our Facebook group, I feel like UK gamers and United States gamers are very similar, right?
Yeah, minus sports.
Okay, yeah, valid. What is Sony producing right now that's paying any dividends in Japan?
The thing is, like
are Japanese people playing Last of Us? Did like maybe, there was I think there was a little bit of flack around Ghost of Tsushima, right? Like not being done.
It was a little stuff of it. It seemed more like a fan of Samurai as opposed to like a true like Samurai like authentic game.
Do you think like God of War is on the top of like some 16-year-old kid that lives in Tokyo?
No, and that's the thing is that this studio would basically make the games that would cater to that thing or to that demographic.
Guess what other company doesn't do well in Japan? Xbox.
Yeah, because they just can't. They don't have the studio or the game library for that market, and this was like definitely Sony's thing. I think this is just a sign of like the globalization of Sony, where they went from a very heavy Japanese company to PS3. It didn't work out hardware sales wise, but in the end, it did once they transitioned over to America, and then they transitioned from America to Europe, to where now Sony's like a European country or a European company, and they just didn't see value in like these Japanese made games or these studios, and it's a real shame.
So Sony's Europe, Microsoft's US, and Nintendo's Japan.
Basically. Yeah, and that's just basically how it's going to go. Because I guess unless your game's selling a bajillion copies, Sony at this point are just like, which I'm sure they're going to absorb some of the people outside of this because they still need artillery studios to like work on stuff, but this isn't a good sign that we're gonna have them working with Japanese developers to bring their games over. Because again, if you go to the Japan Studio wiki page, they helped with so many games, and a lot of those games are Japanese games.
Well, and I would also be curious about like Studio Japan. Like Mark Cerny for a long time was working out of Studio Japan, like when he was making Knack and working on the console on the PS4. Like I just feel like you might be losing a significant foundation of what your company was framed on. Like, it's just crazy. Like, I'm not a fan of this in terms of like Sony was a company that was taking risks, and now like it seems
everything's a third-person open world game.
Yeah, I mean we've gone back to it before. Like, where's their unique adventure and their unique different, like whether you like it or don't like it. Last Guardian did something different. Shadow of the Colossus at the time was doing something different. I'm sorry, like they're great games, but what's the core foundational difference between Uncharted, Ghost of Tsushima, and God of War?
Different protagonists, but like open world-ish games, or in case of Uncharted, kind of open. But yeah, the just looking through all the experimental stuff, especially around PSP, PS3 that this studio did, just like that's the one thing I miss from the current generation or the last two generations of PlayStation stuff are those little experimental games. And yeah, indie studios are filling that void, but I feel like indie games right now are falling deep into a hey, this is weird for weird sake,
Mm-hmm.
or like hey, look at this stupid thing, it's fun, and I love stupid shit. But most of the indie stuff feels like it's everyone just being like, yeah, we're just doing something stupid, as opposed to like the weird stuff we would get from this studio being just kind of cool, as opposed to them just doing stuff because it's stupid. If
Mm-hmm.
that makes any sense, you can look at most indie like trailer things,
Mm-hmm.
like when we watch the Gorilla Collective,
Yep.
like
Well,
one out of three things
I
was
love
something.
what some of them are doing with like the Messenger and Cyber Shadow from my standpoint of like improving on like the Mega Man format or the Metroidvania format, like trying to make that more, current
So
time.
many of those.
There are, but I enjoy some of them, like and
Yeah,
versus like it not being existent. I can't really think of anything, like right now that I would want, but at the same time, like it's not only about me. It's not only about you. Like there's this market, and I feel like Sony's like, you know what, F it. Like they're all just on their phones in Japan now. Like they're not buying our stuff.
yeah.
You know.
I wonder if this move would have happened if there was a PSP 2 or a PS Vita 2. They
Mm-hmm.
probably would not have shut the studio down because they did so much work on PSP stuff and Vita stuff. To where like if Japan still had a hunger for like a PSP 2 or a Vita 2, then the studio would probably survive. But everything's kind of changing. Everyone's just on their phones. And Sony already tried, was it PlayStation Mobile, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, I saw
just
today too, like PlayStation's pretty much giving up on any kind of like renting movies or anything like that. Like you're not going to be able to,
yeah,
like they're just done with that. Like it, and that's fine. Like focus on your games, but like, and every company, every corporation needs to reorganize and redo things. But I find it very hard pill to swallow when you're seeing Sony Santa Monica expanding, Uncharted expanding, Sony San Diego expanding, and at the cost of like, oh well, like the money, there's only so much of the pie, so we ran out of pieces. So Studio Japan, you get no pie. So
yeah. They basically just show them the door and realize, like, hey, you had a good run. Have fun making Astro, which I like the Astro game. I'm
mm-hmm.
not saying I don't, but just the idea that they're just like, Astro's had like 3 successful games. Let's run that.
Well,
And then
but even from a profitability standpoint, like Astro's Playroom, is that profitable? It's packed in with
I
the
don't know.
console. Like,
Yeah, it's hard to tell, but they know people played it, and the question is like, is this going to set up the Asobi team for failure?
yeah.
When
Now, if
they're
they get
like,
to make
hey,
if they
put out
get to make a full scale game, like a full, like if they get to make a I don't even know, like a 10-hour Astro Adventure style game, and like get to ride the coattails of anybody going into the stores and shopping with their kids, and their kid going, Dad, that's the game that was on the system that I played, and I was, can I get the new? Okay, like maybe, but
yeah. But then it also puts pressure on that team of like, if the next Astro doesn't hit, do they start looking at that studio like, we gave you the ball to run with it, and it's not doing it. Like, as opposed to like the thing that was Sony Japan or the Japan studio where it's just like, yeah, they put games out. If it was successful, it was successful. If it wasn't, they moved on to the next thing.
that Astro character from the start of the PS4 life cycle is probably the most kid-friendly, marketable icon that they have? Question mark?
Since Sackboy, yeah.
Yeah, like, because remember the little bots used to be on your screen when those people would do their Twitch
Yeah.
streams or whatever? Like, because you
Yeah,
could.
because that was the only way to do webcam streams. Yeah.
All right. So more Sony stuff with the state of play.
Yeah, more Sony stuff. Yeah, so Sony did their state of play. 10 games. They announced it was 10 games, and it was going to be mostly previously announced stuff, so it was just a check-in. So they put the expectations, they like lowered it, of like nothing groundbreaking is going to happen here. And they pretty much kept that promise. But we did get to see, so let's just run through the list real quick. There's PS5 enhancements for Crash Bandicoot 4. Cool. We'll skip through that. Dave, I hope you were interested in this because you've been wanting to see gameplay of Returnal. They did do a gameplay trailer of Returnal, and it looks good. I know
it looks gorgeous. I still don't know what the hell is going on in it.
Yeah, there's multiple gameplay things. It was definitely one of those things where Housemarque is so good at debris and stuff blowing up, and just voxels and pixels flying everywhere. So I'm still interested in this. Waiting to see, like, is there anything that has screamed like, hey, this is a full price game that you should buy? I don't quite know if I've seen that.
I'm seeing it graphically. Like I am seeing it graphically, like the way it looks.
But I don't know if it's hooked me yet
Right.
to where I'm day one ready to put $70 on it. But it has more of my interest, and as we get closer to release date, I don't
like the first person reticle with the third person perspective. I think that looks really weird.
A lot of games do that, but yeah. Hopefully you can customize that. I like games that let you like customize reticles and stuff like that, so you can always get rid of that. So I was really impressed with Returnal. It's something I'm definitely getting more and more excited for as we get closer to launch.
So here's some of the questions that I'm having. Dave from Philly's in our chat, and he's on board with Returnal 100%. So what I was seeing progression through an area, opening up a wall, so you're seeing like the PS5 tech of how quickly the next area loads, and as you go there, it looks like the character puts her arm in a device and gets some kind of special power up. But at the same time, they're hinting at light roguelike mechanics, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so my first question that I would need to have kind of maybe answered or explained to me would be, how big is a level? And it's the same problem that I have with like Deathloop, and like that's going to be talked about a little bit too, is like Deathloop as a concept looks really great, but if I'm 45, 55, an hour and a half into this playthrough and I die, like how punished are you?
You are bringing whatever leveled up and equipment you have. They did mention that, like,
okay.
You will, like, they did mention that in a specific thing of just like when you run through it, you have whatever leveled up abilities you had before you died. So the replayability of the roguelike element is there.
Yeah, and then procedurally generated arenas, it sounds like, as you go into each room. So like it's fine, but it's it's like you said, like, is this going to do something new, different, and innovative that warrants the $70 price tag? And I'm not seeing it yet.
Or is there like enough story there for, like, I'm looking for story. Like Hades is one of my favorite games last year because it did the roguelike stuff and the story was interesting. So I just need to know more about the Returnal story, because I can deal with like, okay, game mechanics. Though I think the gameplay is going to be fun because it's Housemarque. The shooting will probably feel really good. It's just going to be, can they deliver a compelling story or a really good gameplay loop to keep me from getting frustrated from dying over and over again, and to also let me feel more powerful as I'm playing this game. And then also the size and scope is what's also going to be the curious thing.
I might have more faith in this game if this game came out like after Ratchet.
I think coming out before Ratchet's good.
I don't, because this is your first PS5 exclusive marquee title. That's a brand new IP. Like this is your thing. This is what Sony's like, here's your PS5 game. Like here's your Sony exclusive PS5 only game.
With the current like shortages on consoles, this might be okay. Like the expectations for sales probably aren't going to be too high, so they'll satisfy the people that want this, and then like I talked about, like I think they're holding stock back for Ratchet, so they need something to satisfy the people that currently have the consoles, and this should be enough. The problem is right now for me is just like, because now games cost $70 is like just the extra justification I need for that extra $10. I'm just not seeing it with a lot of games.
Yeah.
So like, I'm suspicious of any game coming out
next gen only.
Yeah, and this is going to be next gen only. So hopefully there's enough. Because
if it doesn't do above average, it's going to set some weird parameters in the gaming world.
So I think this is Housemarque's like test for like acquire me, Sony. So like this is probably make or break for Housemarque. As Sony is looking for more studios. The next game is a what's being touted as a intense kung fu experience, Sifu. this is from Slow Clap, I believe the people that made Absolver.
Correct.
This game looks pretty damn cool.
Mm-hmm.
They showed a lot of fighting in hallways, which immediately made me think of Daredevil, of just like some of the best hallway fights in cinema or television is from Daredevil. This looked really good. The art style is kind of like whatever, but like it looks like the gameplay.
The amount of
is there.
The art style looked kind of bland to me, but the amount of, like you said, like what stuff is going on the screen in terms of like number of characters and movement and how fluid it did look is very interesting to me.
Absolver had. Oh, go continue.
And the looking like there's an aging mechanic in it. Like as you you die, you get older, and I'd be curious to see how that really works in terms of like, does it slow you down? Does it, like there's definitely an interesting hook to it there as well.
Yeah, the combat looked fluid. It looked intense. I enjoyed Absolver's combat that game, but I didn't enjoy like the story and everything like that. That game to me had a lot of rough edges. So this seems way more down my alley because they know how to do combat. So I'm super interested in this game. I think this was like the game of the show for me, of the game of the state of play, of everything they showed. So I was really excited about this. Didn't know it existed. I believe this is a Devolver joint. So I'm sure they'll do some fun stuff with this later on. The next game on here, Knockout City, which is a multiplayer dodgeball game. They showed a couple different things. It looks like it's doing an interesting thing where it's like almost a one-on-one battle royale with dodgeball
as a game mode. This actually looks interesting and looks like it's fun. I don't think this has any staying power or any legs long term. Like I hope this is only like a $20 at the most or $30 game. But this kind of looks like they're trying to hit another Rocket League style game.
Yeah, this gave me like Splatoon vibes.
Yeah.
And like if this ends up free to play, I think there could be some good like long tail on this. But I think it's an EA original, which means they'll probably do what they did with Rocket Arena, where I think Rocket Arena, what they try to charge like $30 for that, and then it quickly went to $5, and then it went to a point where if you went on EA's support site, you could get it for free. They did weird games with Rocket Arena and eventually became a plus game. So hopefully this doesn't follow that same path, because there's very big potential, or at least there's potential in this being like a summer game. Mm-hmm. Like if this comes out in the summer,
it's like Fall Guys 2.0, like another, like you could get a 60-day run out of this thing where people are like, I have really good memories of playing that game with my friends. Like that's fun. So. Yeah,
but like a year from now, or people maybe won't be talking about it unless this game does some really cool things to like give it that long run. Mm-hmm. But I think the gameplay mechanics in this looked really fun. Mm-hmm. And it just looked like it's just kind of stupid fun, where you can like pick up your teammate and throw them because they turn into the ball. Just weird stuff like that.
Sniper ball.
Yeah, that's all that stuff had my interest. And then when you go to the PlayStation blog, they show you all the customization you can do for the characters and stuff like that. So a lot of this stuff. On PS4, it's coming out May 21st. So kind of a summer game, close. It's going to be $20. So
okay, yeah.
That's a good price point.
Sounds like it's going to have a bunch of crossplay in it, which is amazing and great. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it'll have enhancements for PS5 players through backwards compatibility. But yeah, this has my interest. I would love for this to hit PlayStation Plus or Game Pass or
based
whatever.
on that release date, that ain't happening.
yeah, though they've done that before. They've done weird things. Or if this would just hit the EA stuff quicker, because currently, what is it, like EA Premium, you get day one releases?
I can't keep track of that. I know that, just as an example, EA Play is attached to Game Pass now, and Madden 21 came to Game Pass this week.
Yeah, and Star Wars Squadrons.
Yeah, so that's like 6 months. So it's like 6 months from launch. But like this, like to your point, like if you don't get this in especially if you have that much customization, which probably leads me to believe that there's microtransactions in there, I would try to get this in as many people's hands as fast as humanly possible. just
Yeah.
to, just to and then give it like 2 months to let people play it, mess around with it, and then start feeding. I mean, I hate to keep going back to this, but like start feeding some of the seasonal cosmetics into it. Like,
Yeah, I mean that's how these games are built.
yeah,
So it's not crazy to your first thought when seeing a game like this and being like it's battle pass or like cosmetics. Um, and then we got Solar Ash, I believe
hmm
was the game. This looked interesting, but no offense to this, I feel like when I was watching this with one of my coworkers, we named like three or four games that kind of had this art style and this look.
hmm
It does look interesting. It just didn't do anything specifically for me. I don't know if you had any thoughts on Solar
no,
Ash.
not really.
Okay. Uh, Sorry, Solar Ash. We will look back into. It's from the Hyperlight Drifter studio, which is a good studio. So it's not that I don't think this game is going to be good. This game has a very, very high chance that it will be a good game because it's from that studio. It just didn't do anything for me. So we'll move on. Uh, then we got Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. We'll move on from there unless you and your kids
No,
are into Five
that
Nights.
terrifies my son, my youngest son.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just never got it. Then we got Oddworld Soulstorm, which this pops up so much at the anytime PS5 or PlayStation holds an event. We see Oddworld Soulstorm. This is coming out April 6th. It looks like more Oddworld, which I used to like this franchise, but I just haven't been able to get into any of the new ones or the remakes. Dave, any specific thoughts on Oddworld?
It's an odd world game. It doesn't that 2.5D look that they're talking about. It looks interesting. It's this franchise doesn't do anything for me. It never has. So
Okay. Then moving on to the other game that I think is like right up there with game of the show for me. Kenna Bridge of Spirits. We got to see story and gameplay in this. This game looks like it's going to be so good,
it
or at
does.
least I think
It
this
looks
game's going to be
solid.
good.
It looks really, and then it's only gonna be like $40.
Yeah, this is the game that like when you talked about like Returnal being like the next big,
hmm
like PS5
But
game.
this is coming to PS4 as well.
Yeah, but like in terms of big games or like games that have the potential to be big,
Yeah, yeah.
I think this has a real chance to surprise people and be like a big game uh on the PlayStation consoles. But yeah, you're right, it is coming to PS4, but priced at $40, it has a chance to capture an audience and looks like it could be very family friendly, or at least I mean there might be some dark stuff happening in the game. But I'm super interested in trying this game out.
Yeah, it's like
Uh,
August, which I was kind of disappointed in that being that far away. It'll be almost like a year after we first saw it, because I think we first saw it at the PS5 reveal event, like in June, or the gaming
yeah,
event.
I believe so. Yeah.
And it looks great. It kind of like gives me like some Ori vibes, Ori in the Blind Forest, along with it seems like this. It sounds like all the stuff we've been reading about the studios is very Zelda centric. So
With like
this
little Pikmin vibe
yeah,
and
so this has the potential to be really, 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 really good.
yeah. So I'm interested in that. At one point in this trailer, I think it was this trailer where I think one of the bosses came from the ground and stuff was flying too. I'm like, oh shit, they're fighting Knack. Like that was my takeaway from this. And then after that, we got Deathloop trailer, which Deathloop still is on like the top of my list for stuff I want to pick up this year. Uh, this was a gameplay trailer, but I feel like it wasn't that gameplay heavy, or at least unless there was another trailer that popped up because Bethesda emailed a couple times me like check out the newest gameplay trailer, and it was just the stuff shown during the state of play. Uh, this still has my interest. Dave, any specific thoughts on Deathloop? Because I know you're interested in this, but you still are like, what is
Yeah,
this
there's just
really?
this was like a James Bond themed trailer that I'm like, okay, this game comes out in May, so we're coming out in like 2 months, like or 3 months. Like, where's the just the physical gameplay? Like show me this game, somebody playing this game, talking through 5 minutes of a mission. Like there's enough of this, different camera angles, different voice acting, and I need to see gameplay for this now.
Yeah, we definitely could use
We saw this at the last time we went to an E3.
Oh yeah. This trailer was shown then. Yeah, this definitely is one of those games where it's going to benefit heavily. Same thing with Returnal. From like a good 10 to 20 minute. Here's what you're doing, and here's how everything kind of connects. But just off style alone, it's probably got my money day one, because I'm simple like that. It's where it's just like, okay, everything I'm seeing, like visually and story wise, is interesting. I just need to know how the gameplay stuff is all gonna connect, and just uninterrupted gameplay to see if the gameplay is gonna be my style. Though I did get some like, was it this one that I got some like BioShock vibes from?
Dishonored. Yeah.
Yeah, Dishonored, and I had some BioShock vibes from some of the stuff, but so it's Arcane Studios, they have pedigree, so gameplay will probably be fine. It's just a matter of can they connect everything, what they're doing. And then the last thing, which is probably the biggest thing for most people, that was a little confusing. So their Final Fantasy VII Intergrade arrives on PS5 on June 10th. Intergrade is going to be the upgrade for it. It looks beautiful with increased load times and visuals. And it will include the expansion, I guess is what we're going to call it. Coming to the game.
Episode 1 story DLC?
Yeah, episode 1 story DLC, and they made a later announcement that like this is not episode 2. Episode 2 is still coming. So yeah, this is gonna add Yuffie's story to this. No idea exactly how long it's gonna be, but this is gonna be a separate thing to buy. But the PS4 players can get the visual upgrade to the PS5 without this episode for free, disc and digital.
Correct.
We'll get that upgrade.
Presuming you have a disc PS5. If you bought a disc version of Final Fantasy on PS4, thank God I bought the digital version.
Yep. Yeah. And
you had to have. It came out during the pandemic. You had to have got the digital.
Yeah, I think I did get the digital one. Yeah, I had to think back. I'm just like, because I did buy some disc games. Yeah, it looks great on PS5. This was one of those things where I think I talked about it like 2 weeks ago on the show of just like, I want to get back into this game, but I was going to wait for the PS5 upgrades. So now I know I have until June.
See, and I'm feeling the opposite right now. I saw the trailers and I saw the stuff. I'm like, I forgot, like this game looks like it's a ton of fun. I want to play it. And then I'm like, but now I don't want to play it till June, but I want to play it now. Like,
yeah. I just, there was just a little confusion for me, just like, okay, so you're doing an expansion for the first game. We're still going to get a second game. The expansion, I forget how much exactly the expansion cost.
Yeah, I don't know if I could find out that. Like, I mean, I haven't dug a ton, but I don't know if that's something I just have access to. Or we have access to is how much is just a Yuffie story stuff.
Yeah, I gotta see.
So I mean, and then but they're also giving this to PS4. They get this month on PS4 for Plus subscribers, so you can play it on PS4 or PS5 via backwards compatibility. However, it will not upgrade to PS5 for free. So then they probably need to offer some kind of upgrade package to this. So they've got some work to do with that. And then
that's a weird thing.
Yep, and then the pricing for the new for this new expansion and $20. Okay, which leads me to believe it's short. And then they also essentially have drawn the line in the sand after June 10th of like whatever going forward with Final Fantasy is going to be PS5 only. So because this story DLC can't be played on PS4, correct?
That I believe is the case.
So if you bought this game on PS4 and you don't own it as PS5 yet, you're just shit out of luck until you get a PS5. And the continuation of the story, which is a concern that we had when they went episodic, of how they're going to release this, like if you don't get a PS5, you can't continue.
Yeah, you're just stuck at wherever the game ends, which luckily I haven't had that spoiled for me exactly where the game ends. But yeah, it sounds like they're forcing you to you want to finish your game, you're going to have to upgrade. And I don't know if the save transfers. I think the save transfers. So they would screw people out of that if their save doesn't transfer to next gen.
Well,
Yeah,
we just
very
heard
confusing.
about like today, the Yakuza, like a dragon, is getting a
Yeah,
PS5 upgrade, but your save doesn't transfer.
yeah. Which I'm so glad I just bought it on the Xbox because
Like,
it's just
it's just
smart
like
delivery saved me on that.
it's like why? Hey, you get to upgrade for free, but you got to start over, homie. Like,
Yeah, and that's a long game, man.
yeah,
We'll
that
talk about it later.
sucks.
Yeah, I that is a super long game. Enjoyable, but I don't know if it's something you'd want to play twice because there's so much stuff in that game. All right, that is all I had for the news. The Final Fantasy stuff was just super confusing.
Mhm.
It kind of was one of those things where I was into the trailer when they showed the Yuffie expansion and they showed the upgraded visuals, and then they gave it the name Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate or whatever, and I was just like, okay, this is confusing. And then I had to like look on the blog post, and I'm just like, okay, let me see if I could decipher exactly what I have to do to play this expansion or get this upgrade. So I poor messaging, or I might just be dense. I just might be just a little too dumb for how they explained everything. But I think we got it sorted. Any thoughts on the state of play? We've been wanting a state of play, and I don't know if this is exactly what we wanted.
I was fine with it. I mean, like you said, like you read the blog post of what they're doing. It's fine. Like it was what I expected it to be. It seems like that they're showing, it said exactly what it said, software in the coming months. So
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. The Final Fantasy stuff is confusing, like it always is. It feels like anytime that Square Enix comes out with anything Final Fantasy VII remake related, you leave scratching your head more than you did when you first started. You get excited, but then you're like, what was that? Was that episode 2? Was that episode 1.5? How long is it?
You
How
definitely
much
go
is
on a
it?
roller coaster of emotions when it comes to that.
Yeah. So but I mean, other than that, like I mentioned, I just need to see a little bit more gameplay for Deathloop and Returnal. I would love to see at this point in time a state of play dedicated to Returnal.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest is I want one of these games coming out to anchor a state of play. Like you could have cut Crash and Oddworld and Five Nights at Freddy and use that time for one of the games that are coming out soon.
I'm tired of seeing PS4, PS5 just as much as I'm tired of seeing Xbox One, Xbox Series when you show a game. And
especially on the Xbox end, that gets confusing.
And I am also very confused. They've done this for a couple months now, that they're almost telling us what PS Plus is going to be like 60 days in advance or 90 days in advance, because Oddworld's going to be on Plus. And then we knew about Destruction All Stars being on Plus. And then
I don't mind it.
No, I don't. But at the same time, it's like it almost makes you feel like anytime a game releases the first week of the month, you're like, huh. Like, so I mean, it's interesting. We had talked about, we had teased or joked that maybe Returnal was going to be a Plus game, but then when it got like the end of the month date, you're like, no, it really can't be. So it's just they're in a weird spot right now. Coming off of that article, that GQ article, I think that they maybe could have tempered, maybe just teased a little bit of more VR. Like I feel like they knew when that GQ article was coming out, they knew when that state of play was coming out, and it just felt like the two were not even attached at all.
Yeah, and also I didn't put it in a news story because apparently Horizon has been delayed to 2022, but there hasn't been any official word on that. But it was definitely one of those ones where, like, if that's true, Jim Ryan's got to like talk to some people before he does an interview with GQ. Because I cracked up. Like 2 days later, they're like, "Yeah, Horizon's probably delayed."
But like, that's kind of been their MO the last year, though. Like we saw that Last of Us event, and then like 3 weeks later, they delayed the game. They had posters and everything that had the date on it. And I'm like, "What? Is your left hand talking to your right hand?"
Dude, like, luckily no one's confirmed the Horizon thing, so I'm hoping that's just a rumor. But like, enough news outlets were reporting that Horizon was delayed, and I'm just like, what was the point of him? Because we were excited in terms of just like, okay, cool, we know what the year is going to be.
Yeah.
And then when those rumors came out, I was like, well, what the fuck is this year gonna be now?
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I need just to bring it like full circle, like Xbox needs to do something soon. There's the
rumors for the March event
that they kind of nixed them. Aaron Greenberg kind of nixed them in terms of he nixed them in terms of talking about like Elden Ring being there or new gameplay things being there, but I still think we're going to have a digital event style of, hey, Microsoft and Bethesda are officially merged. Here's our plan.
Yeah, or here's Starfield, because screenshots of Starfield have leaked. Something has to come.
So I think it's going to be like, here's our, like we're going to toast our champagne glasses and we're going to talk about, our Game Pass subscription model of what we're going to do. And we're going to kind of briefly give you a glimpse of what you can expect to see from Bethesda as a Microsoft owned studio. I still think we're going to see something like that in March. But at this point in time, like we need to, it's a couple months away. Like, they need to show some stuff from Halo. They need to talk Hellblade. Hellblade 2. Like,
they just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
Like, it was supposed to be early this year.
Yeah. They need to start kind of like showing their hand a little bit, even if it's just a trailer, and saying, hey, it's still a little ways away. But on the heels of, like you've got Cory Barlog of, from Sony saying God of War will be ready when it's ready. For the record, Cyberpunk said the same thing.
Cyberpunk had to delay its patch. It's a big patch for earlier this year too. I also put in a new story.
I don't think Dave from Philly. I don't think Halo's in 2022. Halo will hit this holiday, so it has to. So like,
it has to.
Yeah.
Especially like as much as we talk about Game Pass being good, there's only so much that they can use Game Pass as a selling point if there aren't any first party games coming to the service.
That's why like Hellblade, like Hellblade needs to hit, and like at this point in time it needs to be May, June, July. Like, yeah,
I was thinking Hellblade like a June game to go against Ratchet.
Yeah,
polar opposite games, but just so they can have something within that window.
It just needs to hit. So, all right. So what we're playing and watching, mine will be a little bit shorter, but I did play other things than Destiny, for the record. So I've been playing a little bit more Link's Awakening again on the Switch, just enjoying that. It's definitely getting the bite-sized feel of like a Game Boy game, in terms of like this. It's just not as deep of a Zelda game as I was expecting and hoping for. But it does, I still need to go back and work on Skyward Sword. Not Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild, in preparation for Skyward Sword, because I probably play that this summer. So that's fun. I'm using that through GameFly, so I'm enjoying that and taking my time. It's nice to be able to like pick it up and play it in half an hour chunk when I want to. And then I did mess around a little bit more in Destiny. They released a couple more pieces of content. It's and that's going well. They released a huge state of the game last week about Destiny, and I know we just did one, but I'll probably have Chandler on another spin-off episode that some of you guys seem to like. So we'll just kind of dive deeper into that in the next week or so. Hopefully, if I can schedule that with Chandler. He's already said yes, so it's just a matter of getting both of our schedules to match up. And then I don't know if you played this or not. This is what I was kind of saving for last, but real quick, I'll do watching. I watched Superman and Lois on CW.
Does that have a different tone? All the commercials make it seem like it has a different tone than other CW shows.
Yeah, I thought initially, like, I'm the only, and I thought about posting this in the Facebook group just to get clarification from maybe other people that are maybe a little bit more diverse into the DC Arrowverse show watching than I am. The only one CW show that I'm like up to date on is Supergirl. And the character that plays Superman is the same one that was in the Supergirl show, which is consistent with what Arrowverse and CW and DC have been doing. But I thought that this show was being spun off of that, with it being the focus on Superman and Lois Lane, and it and surprisingly, and again, I don't know enough about the comic books on this, so please just don't kill me. He in this show, he has two twins, twin boys, and they're teenagers. Like 15, 16 years old, 14, 15, 16 years old in this show. And the premise is, so far, is that his mother has passed away and he comes back to Smallville. So it takes place in the Smallville universe. And one of his kids has powers. And it's almost kind of showing him in a different light of how to be Superman and a father at the same time. And the foundation that they're laying is that he's failing at it.
Please tell me his kids know he's Superman.
As of this episode, they do.
Okay, good. Because I was gonna be pissed if you're like, and they don't know he's Superman. Oh God.
So, my wife kind of put it best, is that because the problem that her and I have been having with the Arrow and Flash and Legends of Tomorrow show arc is that it's always something else is on the other side of the hill. It's like, oh, we climb this hill and we beat this villain. Oh, there's a new one. We climb that hill and beat this villain. Oh, there's a new one. And then, and she was really kind of hoping that this would more focus on, I guess maybe she was looking, I don't know what I was looking for when I was watching it, but she seemed to be like she was looking for focusing more on the family dynamic of it, which it looks like it might be doing that. But there is very early on there, it looks like there's a powerful villain. So it's just kind of like she's like, she seems to be very fatigued on this climb the hill, fight the villain, balance your story life and everything like that, and have some culmination of like everything's great now, something new comes in and rattles the whole foundation again. So it's hard to tell. It's on CW. The CW app is free. It streams like the very next day. It's the same problem that I'm having. I'm still watching All American, which is like was originally when I started watching it was a really, really good football show, like that, and now it's like turning into like
CW drama show.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm so invested in it now that I kind of want to see where some of these stories play out. But I'm like, okay, like you've done 2 episodes and you haven't done any football. And a lot
3
of
surprise pregnancies and a twin from nowhere. So,
and a lot of times, like I like watching these shows because it gives me the mental break from COVID. Like that was what TV was doing for me for a little while. And now even some of the shows we're watching, COVID is being interwoven into these shows of wearing masks and fighting the pandemic. And I'm just like, I just need a break from reality, and I'm having a hard time.
Superman punches the COVID monster. Would that make you like a little bit more comfortable?
And then the last thing I played, and I know you tweeted about it, so I don't know if you did or didn't play. Did you play Outriders?
Did not.
Okay.
No, I didn't even download it because I just got stuck into another game that I'll talk about.
Okay. Don't forget our new favorite show. I don't know what you're talking about, Ange. So the Outriders demo. First things first, like in terms of the way to handle a game of a new IP, I think they're actually doing something very interesting. Demo's free. Demo will always be free. Demo will always be available. Progress is carrying forward from the demo to the game. So whatever you can go through the prologue, and you get to a point where you get to pick your class. There's 4 different classes, and then you pick the class, and you can play through, and you can have 4 characters. You can play all 4 different classes, and then when the game comes out on April 1st, you pick up right where you left off. If you decided to farm the demo, you get whatever you farmed in the demo that you can do. It's like you can get up to like World Tier 5, level 7 or 8. And if you get any legendaries or any of that stuff, they're yours. They'll be there when you play the game. Obviously, I'm sure that they've limited the loot pool to only so many legendaries so that somebody's not, better off than somebody else. It's a third person, supposedly like a third person cover shooter, although I feel like there's a guy that I pay attention to, writes for Forbes, Paul Tassi. He kind of put it best. The cover system is for the enemies, not for you. Because they seem to use it better than you do, and you don't. And the way that the game's skills are built around is that the cover system is a little clunky in terms of
do you stick to it, or do you have to go into cover?
You have to go into cover, but you don't slide into cover, and you can't like wrap around like you could in like Gears and you could in like Division, where you can kind of like walk around the edges of cover, and your player kind of sticks to the wall. Getting in and out of cover feels clunky. Mantling feels a little clunky. Gunplay feels fine. Like shooting, it feels fine. Running around doing flanks, the abilities that like my player had, it's built for you to be up close and personal. And I think it rewards flanking and working together as a team. This, we've been talking about it a little bit today. This feels a lot like a games as a service, but it's not. But at the same time, I think that they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They want a loot-driven, build-driven game, but then when you're done, you're done. And like for me, when you're done playing through the campaign, you're done playing through the campaign. Like you might be able to play through it as a different class, which will have a different play style. There's a tank style. There's a like a quick in, quick out style. There's a range style. So there's these different dynamics that different styles you can play, and it's a 3-player co-op. The story is all over the place, which I think is intentional. and the cutscenes and some of the animations seem a little off. Like this game could probably use a little bit more time, unless this is just a really old build. And I hope it's a really old build.
I heard there's weird loading in the game.
Um, what what do you mean?
Fade to black type of thing, or is that just like the cutscenes or something like that?
Because
I saw this one scene
like the cutscenes. Some of it's fully crossplay. It's awesome. And you can definitely I was playing a little bit by myself on PS5, and then my friend Johnny joined, and he's on PS4, and he slowed it way down. I was having fun with the game. I use the phrase have your cake and eat it too, because I'm not feeling any physical attachment to the loot, which is fine. But at the same time, it's just, does that mean that I'm just going to be picking up the next thing that's more powerful just to feel more powerful? It's got a massive skill tree though, for each class, so there could be just some cool theory crafting and build crafting you could do in the game. They're touting a 35 to 40 hour campaign with challenging world tiers. But if it's a 40-hour game that you're done with, and for my playstyle, I might just play through it once as a class and just be done and enjoy the story. And if the gameplay is compelling enough, I might play it again. But I'm on the fence about buying it. But at the same time, I think I am going to purchase it, because I have been pounding the table that I want new innovative IPs, and Outriders is a new IP. And if I don't buy it, then I'm just as much a part of the problem.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of what platform I buy it on, because it doesn't matter, because I can play with my friends whenever I want.
Yeah, I meant to pick it up. It just
You still can. I mean, it doesn't come out till April 1st, so I think that you could play through what you need to play through on the demo in about 4 hours.
Yeah, maybe I'll download it. It's just one of those things that slipped my mind, and then it was Sunday afternoon, and then in my head, because it was
it's like a weekend beta.
Yeah, so I just assumed I missed my chance. So I probably will download it and mess with it then.
All right. That is it for me. So.
All right. So I'm still playing Yakuza Like a Dragon. They keep adding mechanics into this game, which I love. But it's just it got kind of crazy to where at a certain point, I could add jobs to my party members, which changes their outfits and then gives them different abilities, which I thought was really cool. But then at a certain point, I owned a confectionery business that I have to manage, all the employees and the product and stuff like that, which I wasn't expecting. And I'm starting to hit the wall, not hit a wall in a bad way, but I'm starting to hit just every single side quest and everything, to where I'm ignoring the story because there's so much stuff going on the sides that I need to sit down and focus and just go through the story. I did that at one session on Saturday, and I got into a dungeon, and I swear to God, this dungeon felt like it was an hour to 2 hours long, where I was just in this dungeon and it kept going and going and going. So I'm hoping there's not too many sections like that. I think I'm 16 to 18 hours into the game, and that was my first big real dungeon. But it took so long, and I'm hoping there aren't many other dungeons like that. Because it was one of those things where it was getting late, and it was just okay, let me just get through this section.
That's the worst feeling. That's the worst feeling. You're I can just 30 more minutes, and then an hour and a half later, damn it.
Yeah, it was one of those things where we were in the sewers for the story, and every time I would see stairs or a ladder, I would go up the stairs and ladder this is done. I'm in a sewer. Go up these stairs. I'm going to be above ground, and then it'd just be more sewer. And it happened 3 or 4 times where I just kept going up, and up, and I'm just what the fuck?
That happened to me in Immortals. I was oh, this is the last story. I'm this game that I was it's the point of no return in Immortals happened. I'm okay, cool. Maybe it's an hour, and it was 3.5.
This felt this was probably just an hour, but it felt 2 hours. Just kept.
Does it have
it.
a functionality where if you stopped in the middle of the dungeon, you got to go back to the beginning, or do you not know?
No. It would just start you wherever you died. The only problem is the manual save. The save at any time isn't available in the dungeons. You have to hit certain checkpoints to save. Ugh. So in the dungeon, I think there was 3 spots where I could save.
Okay.
as opposed to everything else in the game, I can save at any point.
Right, but then I'm also
But
the
in
same.
the dungeon,
I would also be in the same boat as you were. Okay, I got to the third save spot. Okay, I got to be almost done, and then you're not.
yeah, yeah, and then you deal with the boss, and you're just like, what the fuck? Okay, yeah, this has to be the boss. But I got through it, still loving the game because the characters are what's bringing me through this game. And it's like the one thing outside of like the occasional Game Pass game that's keeping me on my Xbox.
So, and then like we talked about earlier, like it's you got the visual upgrade just happened today for the Xbox as well.
No, it was always there.
Okay,
so
it was just the PS5 upgrade that screwed their
yeah,
consumers that bought it on PS4 and have a PS5.
yeah.
Okay.
My disc says Xbox One and Xbox Series X, and Smart Delivery just takes care of it, and I just get the best thing. I think Microsoft had some sort of exclusivity for it, but at least there was no confusing thing. I just put my Xbox disc in, and it gave me whatever I was on, which was
one ecosystem.
Yeah, it was really, really nice. So
Okay.
I feel bad for the Like a Dragon people on PlayStation. Unless you're just starting out, then just start it on PS5 and enjoy one of the best games of last year. So the other game that took a lot of time is Sarah got back into Final Fantasy 14 online, and she wanted me to like level up a character just so when she has to do dungeons, I can hop on and go dungeon with her. Because dungeons do require multiple players, and you can't always rely on matchmaking.
It also requires like weird server access and shit too, doesn't it?
I'm not quite sure about. Oh, so yeah, there are specific because there's so many people playing this game still. There's like 3 different regions, and in each region there's like 10 servers, and you have to make sure you're in the same server. We're on Siren, that server, which didn't seem as populated because there's some servers where they're just closed. They can't add any more people to them.
We're gonna wake Cordy in the chat. He's gonna start going nuts on us about what I'm saying wrong about Final Fantasy.
Yeah. So getting into so I already had a character before that I made back on PS3, early PS4. But we ended up just deleting that character because it's just like that character was like level 30. I had no idea where I left off in the story, so I just started fresh. So I'm basically just going through all the stuff, but we have a better understanding of everything, or at least Sarah does, so she's guiding me. Though, man, I get so frustrated. I think Final Fantasy 14 has some of the worst maps in video games. So I'm constantly just being like, where am I supposed to go? And then Sarah like has to turn over. Because like I'm playing at my desk on a PS4 and she's playing on a PS5. So she'll just turn over on the couch to look over to the desk and being like, that's where you're going. I'm like, oh, okay. Why can't the game just tell me where I'm supposed to go? The funny thing is, so we're having fun with it, though we're at the early stages where we can't really co-op together. We basically have to hit the point.
Yeah, you have to hit
in
like a
both of
certain
our
level,
stories.
right? Yeah, you have to get to a certain...
Yeah, like we're close to the first dungeon. That'll be the first time we'll actually have something to do. Because right now, I'm at least too early on to where I get to a certain mission and we have to disband a party so then I can do the cutscene, or do the thing or do whatever.
Oh, jeez.
So enjoying that. The only thing that is cracks me up is this, the thing you were talking about with Johnny on Outriders. Is I'm playing on a base PS4 and she's playing on a PS5. When we both go into a section to load, hers loads in seconds, and mine at least take like 30 to 45 seconds.
You can go make a sandwich and cut it in half and give it to her, and then go sit down. And
every time I load, I will get to an area or to the load 3 seconds before her. But like I'll have time to go on my phone and check Twitter, and then her character is like already in the world, and she'll just sit emote, where her character has enough time to just sit on the ground and wait by the entrance/exit for me. Why I'm just like, yeah, I'm still loading. I'll be in soon. It had me almost like considering like, okay, maybe even though now the PS4 stuff is like harder to get than before, or PS5s are harder to get than before, I'm just like, maybe I get a digital PS5 if I can hunt one down.
Tell you what, man, having 2 in the house, like, and it's a luxury right now, just because one is my son's. Like, I didn't. He bought that with his own money. But just like, oh, I can just play upstairs. And like, oh, I can play downstairs. Like, it's great. But at the same time, I'm like,
yeah, like I don't think I will do that just because right now with the semiconductor shortage, it's just not worth the stress of trying to like.
Oh no, I was gonna say, have you tried remote play? But I don't think you can be connected to the same PS5 on 2 different accounts. Yeah. Never mind.
I'll just deal with it, and I ended up downloading like a really old mobile game on my phone.
Oh my gosh.
Just because work's been dead, but also because it's just like it's one of those like turn-based mobile games to where like when I am loading, I could just like, oh, let me just. It's Rebuild. It's a zombie game 10 years ago or something, where you like try and like manage a town. So I'm doing that. I don't know why I downloaded it. It was just one of those things where I was looking for a different application in my Android
Uh-huh.
history, and I went so far back that I saw that game. I'm like, does this still work? Did this have some weird bullshit online component that I don't remember? So I downloaded, started to play that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like playing that in threes on my phone while I'm waiting for Final Fantasy 14 to load. And it's funny because the loading times probably weren't that bad, but it feels bad because just
You're sitting there
5 feet away from me.
You're sitting there next to the Ferrari and you're driving the Pinto.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where it's just like I look over, I'm just like,
Well,
oh,
I noticed it in Destiny, and I noticed it in Outriders. Like when I'm playing with my friends, when I'm playing with my PS4 friends, I'm like, dude. Like,
yeah, it's one of those things where like I think I would be fine if like we were both on the PS4 Pros or something.
yeah.
But like just looking at the PS5, it's like that image is a little clearer, and even though because there's no upgrade specific for the PS5,
Right. It just happens.
but it's
though.
just
It's just like
yeah, it's just running at a better frame rate and running way faster because of the SSD and the Wi-Fi 6. Having fun. Like we're about to do our first dungeon either today or tomorrow, which will be the second time we've done this dungeon because we did this like 5 years ago now. So just getting through that. I think she bought all the expansions. I only have up until Heavensward, which is the first expansion. So we'll see if
it holds your attention long enough.
yeah, to drop like the $60 for like the other 3 expansions that are out. And I think a new expansion's coming out like this spring or summer. So who knows if this will be in the long run. But it's still fun to just kind of have that game to where it's just like I'm just doing tasks, like I'm just doing simple things and I'm seeing my level go up and just one of those things. I don't want to say mindless, but definitely has that appeal.
There's still a place for those games that you can play, like you talk about all the time, like where you can play the game and listen to a podcast or like have a television show on in the background or have a conversation with your significant other and not have to be like, hey,
basically it.
Like, hey, I got to play this game, so leave me alone. Like, there's certain times that I go in that mode, but for the most part, like playing upstairs a little bit more, like I can have. Especially if I'm playing like Destiny by myself or I'm playing Zelda by myself, obviously, which I always play Zelda by myself. But I can, Angela can be putzing on her phone, playing her game, doing some schoolwork stuff, and I can, we can conversate and spend time together. And those games have their place, but then it's also nice to sometimes sit down and just forget everything else that's going on and put your headphones on and focus.
Yeah, it's funny though because like when our characters are standing next to her character is like highly leveled, has very like. She'll dye her costume like her armor the same color so it looks very uniform and like looks proper. And then my character, I just look like a mess.
Well,
like,
apparently you're gonna feel even worse because PS5 upgrade comes in April and the new expansion is in the fall. So if you're still playing in April, she's gonna look that much better than you.
Damn. So yeah, well, hopefully by April I can get a digital and then put the digital somewhere in my desk area. Because the base PS4 barely fits like under my desk where I have it because it's so loud. But I guess if I get a digital PS4, I'll put it like right where this skateboard is. If you can see that on screen,
just mount it, stick it to the wall.
yeah, just do something like that. So damn it, I'm gonna have to do that in April then.
All right. Anything else you've been playing or watching?
No, just continuing with WandaVision.
Oh yeah, I watched that too. So.
Watched D2 Mighty Ducks yesterday.
You're gonna make me watch these movies.
yeah. I think March we're gonna talk about the Mighty Ducks because Sarah hadn't seen them before, so I started her with the best one, which is D2.
You still started her with D2 though? It has more impact if she watches D1. Come on.
I think D2 is a better introduction to the universe because it's a better movie.
Yeah, but okay, never mind. We're not like.
It's a better movie.
I'm not saying it's not a better movie, but I mean the premises of the characters. Some of the characters are already there. It's like okay, whatever.
Yeah, no, I think that was the right choice. I think it was the right choice. And then I was talking about like, hey, D3 has some aspects to it that are pretty good, but we don't need to see it.
Yeah, she needs to watch all 3 of them, and I'm sure that there's going to be some tiebacks to that with the television show coming. So.
Oh, for sure. That's it for me.
All right. So questions and comments using hashtag AskDigitalDays. You can send them to us on any of the social networks that I linked in the Discord, in the Facebook group, all the stuff. It's all linked in the show notes. Check it out. Todd Hampton writes, as a non-RPG gamer, but someone looking for a decent story, is the Mass Effect Legendary Edition worth picking up and preserving? Worth picking up and preserving within the long run.
Persevering.
Persevering. Sorry.
Yeah, I that's the last sentence in the question was a little rough, so I think that's what he meant. I think so. I think the Mass Effect games play really well, especially knowing that they're gonna basically use the gameplay mechanics from like 2 and 3 into 1. I think you're gonna get a really good experience, even if you're not super into the RPG aspect of it.
Okay. I haven't spent enough time in Mass Effect to answer that question, so I'm sorry. So.
Yeah, no, I think the story's great. I know it didn't really end to the point where everyone wanted, but I think it's
I'm intrigued by
definitely
it.
worth
I've tried to play Mass Effect 2 based on recommendations from other people years ago, and it kind of gave me the like old game feels old vibes to it of coming off of some of the other stuff I was playing. But I feel like I'm in a different mindset to where it might be something I could check out this summer, but this summer's also looking just super packed. So
the re-release trilogy that they put out on like PS3 and the Wii U, they didn't put like any
and that's why
real
I'm willing to look at this one and to see, because obviously it's going to have some nice quality of life stuff into it. It's still going to feel like a 10-year-old game. Like I
one
know
specifically is going to be rough, but they made enough changes, or at least they said they made enough changes that maybe it won't feel that bad.
So I know it's going to be kind of rough, but at the same time, I feel like it's a franchise or a storyline that I need to experience as a avid video gamer that I am. So
Dave will play it and he won't romance anybody.
Probably not. So.
That's the point.
Yes. All right. Last question. Robert Cartwright, looking for Switch recommendations this time. With lockdown in the UK soon to be relaxed, I need a game to fill a few hours a week while away from the house. What are your favorite Switch games that have repeatability? So from a repeatability standpoint, I think you're better at answering that question than I am.
Yeah, if you're talking about games that like aren't online centric, because of course I would always recommend Tetris 99. I would say Grindstone, though that is available on Apple Arcade. So if you have an iPhone, you can pick that up as well. Grindstone's a really good puzzle game. It's got a lot of levels in it, and there's a replayability of getting higher scores. So Grindstone would probably be at top of my list. Hades, which was like my runner-up for Game of the Year last year. That has a ton of replayability. Dave still needs to put time into that. So Hades is like
I
really
bought
good.
it. Leave me alone.
Yeah. Though if this is like a commute thing and you can't pay attention to the story, maybe get through your first 10 playthroughs at home, and then any playthrough after that won't have much story for you to pay attention to. So you can just have fun with the mechanics and all the different weapons. So Hades definitely high up on that list. And then a game that came out, I want to say like 2 years ago, Earth Knight. It's a kind of an endless runner sort of game, but it has like way deeper mechanics than that. Earth Knight has one of the best damn soundtracks in a game. It's chiptune soundtrack. The art style is gorgeous. So like Earth Knight is definitely a game I highly recommend. Those would probably be the three that I would go for. And I would also recommend, Nintendo apparently is serious about getting rid of these Mario games at the end of the month. So you might want to pick up the Mario collection.
Best Buy has it for like $50 this week.
Yeah, and that sadly is the best sale it's going to get.
Yeah, like it's going away at the end of March.
Before it gets scalped.
So in terms of my recent Switch stuff, like I would just say, like if you're into the Zelda franchise at all, Breath of the Wild is great. I really, really, really was surprised and enjoyed Paper Mario and the Origami King. It worked really well on the Switch. It's I wouldn't say it's got repeatability to it, but it definitely has some long playtime, like significant time. I mean, it was like 20 hours in the car to and from Virginia and also playing it while on vacation. It's got a lot of content in it. And I was really enjoying that. So that seems to be really good. And those are the two that like kind of like jump out right away to me of ones that I think you should definitely check out. But I brought my Switch because I like Mario, Zelda, Donkey Kong. Like that's why I have my Switch. So
And I bought it for indie games just because
yeah.
indie games don't really pop up on the big boy consoles, whatever you want to call it, the more powerful consoles now.
So, all right. So those are the questions. Again, you can send us those using hashtag AskDigitalDays. Just a quick, just two little plugs. Sometimes it drives you guys crazy. Teesprings.com/digitaldaysgaming or whatever the link is to the Teesprings. There's shirts, there's hoodies there. If you have any suggestions for different things you'd like to see, maybe we can look into it. Stickers, coasters, I don't know. Let us know. And then our Patreon. So we did a little bit of a push the other day for Patreon. We just released the February episode, which was our game of generation, which which covered PS4 because that was our game of generation, or the console that we both had during that generation. So that's there. There's like 7 or 8 episodes there that you get for the $7 tier. There's a bunch of stuff like holiday traditions, E3 stories, worst games we ever played. There's a whole bunch of content on there that you get now for the $7 tier, and you get access to all the previous ones, as well as long as you stay as an active $7 tier, you get access to all the future stuff. And you get the 24-hour early access to the podcast because that's part of the $5 tier, which is getting the podcast on Wednesday mornings with a private or a separate RSS feed from the normal one. It's got a different colored logo, all that cool fancy stuff too. And then the $3 tier is the Discord access, and the $1 tier is just the tip jar. So you might see us pushing Patreon just a little bit more. Not that we need the money, but it's just something that it's kind of a focus of 2021 is to provide new and evolving and growing content. So you might see a little bit more Facebook and Twitter stuff on Patreon. But as always, feedback of maybe why you don't use Patreon or why you won't use Patreon or why you won't use our Patreon is always welcome. It's too much. That juice isn't worth the squeeze. Like those are all things that we like to hear, and if changes need to be made, if it's enough, like we can always adjust. We're not opposed to changing and evolving and adapting, as well as just trying to stay consistent with what we're doing. 70 consecutive weeks now of consistently releasing this on Thursdays or Wednesdays for your Patreon users. So, all right, you got anything else, Michael?
No, that's it for me. Just hoping to get some new games to come out. Like, I feel like there hasn't been a ton of new games the last couple weeks, but
yeah,
it's out of my control.
My wife was watching me play the Outriders demo, and she's like, "When does that come out?" And I go, "A month from tomorrow." And she's like, "Ooh." I was like, "It might be okay." Like,
Be fine.
But other than that, I hope everyone has a great week and keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick.